And then shortly thereafter, the market crashed.
Such bad timing.
Such bad time. I was like, oh, I wasted my life, my degree. I was like, oh, Lord, what a bad decision. And as I sit here, it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
In hindsight.
It was the best decision, hands down, that I ever made. It wasn't easy. It's ebbs and flows, peaks and valleys. I don't regret it. Here's a
Teddy's got the giggles.
I always got the giggles. I feel like I'm gonna have the giggles all episode.
Let's do it.
All right. All right, you can turn it down. That's good. Thank you for my theme music there. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Flipping Tables podcast. Now, before I introduce my guests, I just want to thank you for tuning in. So if you're new to the channel and you think like we're giving you value, I just want you to click this little button down below. You're going to hear this little bell icon. And if you like that sound, I want you to click this other button. It says subscribe. And now you get to hear notifications every single time we have an episode. Now, as you know, this podcast is all about limiting beliefs and flipping your perspective on life in general. And we've got a guest that's going to do just that. Joining us today is Teneshia Taylor. She's a powerhouse in the world of real estate and community investment. Tanisha is a strategist who transforms challenges into opportunities, advising property owners, companies, and nonprofit organizations on how to make the most of their resources. She's also an educator and a visionary, currently developing a project to boost the economic potential of South Florida's entrepreneurs and communities. Wow, that's a lot to say. In today's episode, we'll be diving into Tanisha's journey, her work, and her insights into overcoming challenges, seizing opportunities, and making a difference in the community. Whether you're a seasoned professional or a complete novice, there's something for everyone in this conversation. So without further ado, let's dive in and start flipping tables with Teneshia Taylor. Can we get a round of applause, please? That intro was brought to you by ChatGPT. It's actually super amazing what you can learn from ChatGPT. Tanisha, how are you doing today?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I feel like we're going to learn a lot. And I'm probably going to ask you less questions than I've ever asked any other guest that we have here. Because you have a unique gift of expanding on a single point, and you can go different places with it. So I'm going to start off with a simple question. When you meet up with someone for the first time, how do you introduce yourself?
So that's a great question. Because I am changing that, actually.
Changing it.
I am. I initially introduced myself as a real estate consultant and entrepreneur. And while I love real estate.
Yeah.
I love real estate. I'm in love with being an entrepreneur.
Okay.
And I'm probably going to drop the real estate consultant because the entrepreneur title is so encompassing. So I'm actually finding a way to reintroduce myself because for a long time, I will share this with you.
Absolutely.
For a long time, I was locked into being a real estate broker. I sort of fell into real estate.
So you did it on accident? Like, how did you fall into it?
My background was commercial banking. I was a commercial underwriter I was an underwriter in a commercial real estate department, and said, I should move into entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
And I thought about it, was really scared to do it. And it was actually my mom that, my mom said, if you are going to cry about this job every day, then you should quit and come work with me. And my mom's a realtor.
Easy transition.
Well, I was actually upset that she said it to me because I really loved the work at the bank, but it wasn't a friendly environment. I felt I was going to quit.
Gotcha.
But I didn't want to quit because I wanted to be here and I liked the work. So 4 or 5 months later, I said, yeah, I think I'm going to do this. I initially thought that I was going to develop a real estate investment trust. I thought I would end up in real estate investments, maybe investment banking. And I said, but, brokerage is a great place to start, and it's the entrepreneurship.
Okay, I gotcha.
that I was drawn to. And I said, it's in real estate, so I can springboard from there.
Gotcha.
And I did that, and then I left the bank.
After how long?
Well, I was at the bank 2 years.
Okay.
Left. I was really young at the time. I might have been 20. I think I was 26. And then shortly thereafter, the market crashed.
Such bad timing.
Such bad time. I was like, oh, I wasted my life, my degree. I was like, oh, Lord, what a bad decision. And as I sit here, it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
In hindsight.
It was the best decision, hands down, that I ever made. It wasn't easy. It's ebbs and flows, peaks and valleys. I don't regret it. There's some things that I did in my 20s, not the silly things. I was in a long-term relationship. I made a decision about school. I made decisions about other things that I'm like, that wasn't that great of a decision. This I thought was not a good decision, and it's the best decision I've ever made. I would not change a thing about it.
Now, how long did it take you to realize that it was the best decision you ever made? Because I know when you're in the situation, like you were saying, it's probably thinking it's the craziest idea ever.
Let me tell you how this played out.
Okay.
So the market crash was like, oh,
so bad.
I'm done. Like, this is, let me go and figure out another plan.
Yeah.
And at that time, couldn't get a job. Only job I could get was, I think, in North Dakota. Couldn't get a job. Forget banking at the time. Couldn't sell a house if I tried.
Such a bad. Oh man.
And I said, you know what? I'm going to go back to school, and I'm going to put this whole thing behind me. And I actually ended up in another graduate program for accounting to get and I got a master's in accounting. And it was during that program.
Okay.
At the same time, I ended up getting a consult with a small business development center. And that's a story for another day. But I ended up getting a freelance contract as a technical writer.
That's awesome.
And then they didn't have anyone that could write financing proposals. And they didn't have anyone that was really good with numbers, and I was. So that turned into a financial consult. I was with them for 3 years through my graduate program. And I said, oh, I'm going to sit for the CPA exam, and I'm going to move on with my life, and this will be just a memory. And it was during those 3 years that I over those 3 years, I said, what if I just looked at it differently?
Yeah.
What if I tried something else? And I rewrote my entire business plan the first year of that grad program. And I said, okay, I might be able to pull this off. And then as I was writing financing proposals for other small businesses, I said, oh, there's resources here. I said, oh, here are other people who are succeeding and in the same place. So during that grad program, I completely turned my business around. And by the time I graduated, I won my first contract with a municipality.
That is awesome. Give you a round of applause.
That's how
crazy.
And I have yet to sit for the CPA exam all these years later. I plan because now it's a life goal.
You didn't do it?
No, because when I finished the graduate program, this is the ongoing joke, right? Because I say I'm going to do it, and then I haven't. And I said, now it's just now a life goal.
Yeah.
I have to sit for it.
Do you have a reason why you want to do it, or is it just to actually do it?
Well,
just to say you did it?
I went to school to do it. Mm-hmm. Like, I spent all this money
to
get it.
It meant something.
But the opportunities I had at the time were what they were. The exam isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And I said, this may. And that was a great run for like 4 years. I won contract after contract. I co-founded a nonprofit. I won $3 million in grant.
Okay, she's saying all this really fast. Hold on.
It was a good run. It was a really good run. But that was the first time I hit rock bottom. And the recession set a lot of people back in a number of ways. Maybe another conversation.
Absolutely.
But it was during that time when I was studying and just your mind is in a different place in college. And I said, well, what if I tried this? What if I tried that? Maybe, and I got to research. I'm researching for school, and then I'm seeing these other businesses, and I'm researching for them. And I said, well, maybe I haven't tried everything.
What do you mean by that? That your mind is in a different place in college as opposed to being in the workforce?
Because you get tunnel vision.
I got
right?
you.
When you are in your business and your work, you are so focused, and sometimes a lot of times you don't have the perspective that you need, right? So for example, I sit on 3 boards, and 2 of those boards are for networking. One of them is specifically non-industry related. One, it's education related. I am an advocate for education. But 2, it's perspective. I can't always be involved in things that are real estate and entrepreneurial related. You lose perspective.
That's a good point.
Same thing with reading, which is why you read about people outside of reading. I love productivity. I love business books. I love marketing books. But other people have insights that give you perspective that you can.
How do you find that balance, though, as far as, focusing in on what it is that you do, like you're saying, right? You sit on 2 boards, 2 of them is what you do. How do you find that balance of making sure that you don't lose perspective of what you're working on, but at the same time still actively working to understand what's out there?
You have to be intentional.
Okay.
So for a long time I was out of balance. Like this is my work. This is a lifestyle. So let me say that entrepreneurship is a lifestyle, and it's not one of these
not like
what
Instagram.
We see. It's not that. It is it is a life. It is not getting a check every week or every other, and you hear that.
Yeah.
But you are still supposed to pay yourself. So what does this look like? You have yourself on payroll. You pay yourself when you pay everybody else if there's other people. So good cash flow management is you are on the books and you receive a check, right?
Yeah.
And when your business has no money, you now have to take the check that you paid yourself and put it back in. That's called contribution.
That's the part that no one talks about.
Yeah, and what we do in practice is we punt. So we don't pay ourselves on the books because we're like, we don't have enough this month. You make sure you hit payroll, and then you put yourself behind. Oof. And then you go to try to buy a house, and you can't create a W-2 for yourself.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, there was a conversation on Twitter about that, and it's very true. I fell into that, right? Not that you can't be a self-employed person and produce K-1s and income statements to qualify for financing. Yeah. It's not that. There are a lot of entrepreneurs that have the money, but underwriting is easier when you have a W-2. It just is. There's fewer questions because then they have to look at profit and loss. They have to look at your schedule.
Is that just for housing, or is that for everything else? Because I know a lot of people get, for example, like cars under their business, or just buy things and put it under the business.
Well, for housing, yes. If you want to get a mortgage and you are self-employed, how you pay yourself is important because they have to underwrite based on that. Now, you can qualify based on, if you're taking distributions and all of those things. That's, if the money's there, but it becomes more complicated.
Gotcha.
So you have entrepreneurs that have not paid themselves and then can't finance. That was part of the challenges with some of the PPP applications. They weren't paying themselves, and some of those funds, a lot of those funds were going towards payroll. So if you were not on payroll,
right off the bat.
Now you had K-1s, but there were businesses that weren't, and if you're not drawing down as much, right, through your K, if you're not taking distributions.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah.
Or as much as you would if you were paying yourself, then you got less financing and PPP. So those are things that I learned along the way too.
Yeah. No, it's rough because I know a bunch of entrepreneurs, and I could tell you for a fact they're not 100% as far as like on their books, myself included. Definitely not 100%. So to hear like a story like that, you could have actually used those funds if you just did what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, and it's hard. And and I was told this before and was late in applying it. But you pay yourself and then you write a check back to your business. And that's really, so, you might be, technically you're negative, but then you'd have to,
You still have to pay.
you're putting the money back in. So it looks better. So you're still paying yourself, but
Exactly.
the accounting is what, but it's the accounting. It is what it is. You're supposed to get paid from this entity.
That is wild. Can you hit another button, please? I don't know what button we have at. I think we have a cash register button. Wow, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. That is wild.
I have a great friend. Shout out to Michelle Pemberton from Absolute Accounting Business Services.
How you doing, Michelle?
She is been a godsend, and we do a lot of work together. And that's her sage advice. You got to pay yourself.
I mean, it seems so simple, but I can see how it makes all the difference in the world, and just you can avoid a bunch of headaches. What do you think are a couple other? Let's go with 2. Let's go with 3. It's gonna be fun. 3 misconceptions, and I know you kind of alluded to it, that people have when it comes to entrepreneurship. Like the main ones you constantly see, especially for like the beginner entrepreneur.
So currently, that it's glamorous.
Okay.
I love that more people are considering entrepreneurship as a career. I've been an entrepreneur a long time. When I graduated I have an MBA. So when I did the MBA, entrepreneurial MBAs were just starting to become prevalent.
Okay.
Now almost every school has an entrepreneurship program. That is fantastic. I do think it is glamorized, and that is a misconception. It was not glamorous.
Is it the freedom that makes it so appealing to people?
It's the freedom. It's the freedom. It is, and it's the marketing of it, right? It is. I love the boss culture.
Okay. What do you mean by boss culture?
I love that
idea,
right? Where it is, I'm a boss, Miss Boss, right?
I'm the boss,
and I love boss culture, but there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. And that's why when you get into it, you find some people struggle with leadership, right?
100%.
One person, let me tell you the reality when you hire people, when you're responsible for payroll.
Oof.
And the reality is that I have met entrepreneurs who have made payroll and they could not pay themselves. I've been there. I never missed payroll for 8 years.
That must be a horrible feeling. I mean, a great feeling in the fact that you make sure you take care of your people. But I mean,
and I say 8 years not because I'm missing payroll now. Don't confuse
so
that. No. I have sales associates who are contract staff, but I had part-time staff, and I had a sales assistant who's no longer with the company for health issues. But when I have staff, and I've had one, and I've had up to 8 people on staff, I don't miss payroll. And I've made payroll, and I have not gotten paid. There have been those periods where that's happened. So boss culture means, making sure that the people that are working for you get paid, making sure you meet your obligations, making sure that notification. I saw one show where the woman that was running a sales office, a real estate sales office, just changed the commission split.
Just
in a meeting. It was like effective in 10 days. That's horrible. That's money's income. Yeah, so those things. So I think it's glamorized that you could just do what you want, and there's a cost. There's a cost to be the boss.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that reality check that you can do most of what you want. You can do most of what you want. And paying your dues is part of that too. That was a hard lesson for me too. I thought I'm like one of the most impatient people you'll ever meet.
No way, not you.
Mm-hmm. I have a good cover, but I'm not that patient. I am tenacious. I can play the long game, but I'm really not patient. And this journey has been a test, in patience. Patience is a virtue. It is. And you want things to happen right away on your schedule because you're in charge, so you can make that happen. And
Are you saying as far as like your staff making sure they're doing things in a timely manner for fulfillment, or are we talking more client side?
both. I think you just want to see certain things happen in a certain way, and I'm not saying that they won't. I'm just saying when they don't, right? We see some. I read something I'm on Twitter a lot, but I read something that someone said, that someone tweeted, and it was like, a lot of what's in social media are the successes, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it was 3 years before I won my first grant. Doesn't sound like a long time, but I applied every year, and it wasn't the only, we won nothing for 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Part of what I do as a consultant is compliance, and I'm won municipal contracts. I've subcontracted on with other companies that have won federal contracts, but I have yet to win as a prime or sub tier.
Yeah.
And I'm going 8 years into this, right? So you have these wins,
Yeah.
but some things, and big things, take time. And that ultimately is the less. Big things take time.
That is crazy.
But it is, there's things that I want that I'm going into a decade trying to achieve. I was like, I don't know if someone had told me that when I started at 5. It's like, what? This is supposed to happen now, because you see people, right? You're seeing it and they're there.
Yeah.
And you have to have conversations like this. Like, this is what it is. Like, I didn't get paid.
Yeah.
When the recession came, I had $700 in my account. I mean, there are people who have said, I'm going to bet and I'm going to hope and pray and walk out this faith to get here.
Would you say that another misconception is instant gratification?
Yes. The glamour, that it's glamorous, that it happens fast is a misconception. And that it's not that it's easy, it's just, it's perspective, right? Like it really is. It's you have to change the way you think. You do. You have to change your way.
I'm like, I'm done. Well, this is another episode.
But think about it, right? Like I would almost, I'm gonna say,
okay,
when it failed, right? I was about 18 months, about 18 months into entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah.
When the market crashed, and I said, well, I could quit now, or I could do something else. And I said, I'm gonna do something else.
No hesitation.
I'm gonna try this again.
Yeah.
Later on when things are better. And I really still could have. I know people who just did it. And I just really, if you haven't thought about quitting, I don't think you're having the right experience. You're
not doing it right.
Me and Tiffany literally were just talking about that. Not quitting, but not being afraid to start something new after something failed.
Listen, and what is great about entrepreneurship now is people are talking about their failures. They weren't a decade ago. So
social media is definitely helping with that, because you get to see the heights.
It is, and you have some honest people that are out here that are like, I was broke. I was this. It was hard. It was really hard. I didn't figure this out. And that was huge, because for a long time I felt like a failure. For a long time I felt like, I was like, this should have worked. It's supposed to work. It worked for this person, worked for that person. And then I met them and they were like, They were like, I didn't make it until I was 6, 7, 8 years into this when it started to get really good. Right. And I was like, really? Now I hear more of those conversations. So I think if it's not, someone would say if it's not challenging you, it's not kicking your ass.
100%.
Right?
Yeah,
like if you're not, you're going to get some shots in the ring, but if it's not kicking your ass,
you don't hit the ground a couple times.
Then I don't think you're in it. I don't think you're in it. And if you're in it and you feel like you're getting your ass beat, stay.
You know, that's a good point. And
you're gonna get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're going to get there.
Hit it twice if you can. That'd be great. And I think that's
I don't want to use my colorful language,
right.
but yeah.
I agree with you. And I actually, while you were saying it, I think it's actually an interesting approach. And I would actually take that approach if someone asked me about it, to kind of, not in a way like scare them away from it, but really tell them all the things that could go wrong. And if they're still excited about it, then you're like, okay, you can do this.
What you want is for someone to say, well, how did you overcome? How'd you get past that?
Yeah.
I will tell, so why I love this and why I'm so supportive of you.
Appreciate
Along the way, I met some people that were not who I thought would have been supportive, being the only woman in a leadership position, being someone who looks like me in a position, and they were not helpful. And when I say helpful, I'm not talking about you should give me a contract. I'm talking about when you were here at this time, how did you get there? Right? The informational.
Do you think that's like part of the culture, like competition as opposed to, I'm gonna say collaboration, but do you feel like the culture has kind of shifted as far as
I think collaboration, I think the culture of collaboration is thriving, and I'm glad to see it. But I gave that example because I promised myself I would never be that person.
Gotcha.
I will never be the person that doesn't share the information.
Hey, real quick, are you a busy coach, consultant, or entrepreneur trying to navigate the complex world of content creation? I know, I get it. You have to literally come up with the ideas, you have to shoot it, chop it up, then actually post it on the social media. It's a lot of work. Why not take that long form content that you already have and repurpose it into bite-sized clips that you can post on social media, making your life easier so you can focus on what you do, running your business, or taking care of your clients and doing what you do best. That's what the lovely folks at Painless Podcasting are doing for you with their new offer, the Reels on Wheels. They'll repurpose any one of your long-form content, chop it up for you into bite-sized clips that you can use on any social media outlet. And the best part, they do it on an unlimited basis. Imagine, all you can eat, kind of like a buffet. If you are interested in taking up on this offer, you can use this promo code down here, Reels20, and they will give you 20% off your first month. Why are we making this content creation process so difficult when it can be painless, right? Let's get back to
share the information. I have another friend who's an entrepreneur, and we just realized that we are the first generation for my family, are the first generation that went to school here. I was born in Jamaica. My mom and dad immigrated, and me and my sister were the first generation to go to school here, get to college, starting a business, and there was no uncle, there was no legacy. I'm figuring this out, so were they. And we just said we had to get good with, okay, we're the first, we're gonna figure it out, and what we're not gonna do is not share. So, when I meet someone and they say, well, how do you put together a grant application? Let's talk about that. Right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about, and I've benefited from people who have said, I'm going to help you. And I've seen the people who didn't, and it was hard because you're like, wow, the feeling, and you're like,
I never wanted anyone else to feel that.
I don't want them to feel that way.
Yeah.
Do you think
I don't want to feel that way.
It might sound like a crazy question, but do you feel like in a way it helps people when they have no other option or outlet? Because there's a couple of people that I've talked to that when they got to the point where it has to happen or it has to happen, that's when they kind of made things happen. Do you think there's a benefit to that? Or like you were saying, to always have that person that can, no. All you need to do is just change this, to kind of help you through the process. Like, do you see more of a direct benefit, or is it kind of just situational based on the person?
I see that as two different things. Okay. I think when your back is against the wall, you become a different person.
For real.
That's just it. My mom was a single mom. She didn't think she would be, and she's like, when she realized like this is what it's gonna be shortly after her and my dad split, she's like, you become a different person. So there's that.
Okay.
Right? Now, mentorship is valuable. And what we have is a lot of informal mentors. But when you have someone that says, this is how you do it, this is where you go, this is what you say, that is what we want.
Right.
That's not what most of us get. And mentorship is like is a relationship. People have to connect. But the people that you're connected with can provide more mentorship. Someone has to say, I really want to see you do well. And this is what you also have to be willing and open to that.
Yeah.
Right? So it really is a relationship, and we don't have enough real mentorship. What is, I think, equivalent is modeling.
Okay.
So people who have modeled what you want to do are the people that become your informal mentors.
Right.
Okay.
So I think I see it as two different things. I don't think your back needs to be against the wall for you to I don't think it's like the urgency versus someone helping you. It's two separate things, because everything can't be survival mode.
Yeah.
Everything
you can't get stuck there.
And then when you're in it, like the recession was hard for everybody. And that's what was different about this entrepreneurial experience. And the businesses that came out of that are so strong. But that was a long, hard road for a lot of people, myself included. And when you're in something for a long time, everything starts to look like that. When you're in the dark, your eyes adjust.
100%.
And that's not good, because then you stay in that survival mode.
Regardless of anything
going
on around
and people say, you survive, you got to thrive. Well, the context is like when you have been working all those hours, when you have been concerned about scarcity, when it's been hard, everything can't be hard for so long, because then you approach everything the same way.
Yeah.
Right? Because and that's the perspective, that you have a different mindset once you have made some money and now you got to grow. You got to think about growth, which is partly why you have so many people working in their business and not on their business, because for a long time, and even now, I'm like, I remember when I didn't have any money. So it's hard for me to say no to opportunities. I've gotten better because I don't want to be without.
You don't feel like you're missing out on an opportunity that you didn't have.
Yeah, because I had $700 and I was like, oh, we're gonna close. So this is it.
Survival mode.
I was like,
you're 100% right, because I've heard it put a slightly different way. I don't know if you've heard of Myron Golden before. I took one of his courses, and the way he broke it down, or the biggest message I took from him was, there's two seasons essentially, like two main seasons in life, right? Focus and what's the other word? You know the other word. I told you the thing. It's focused and it's a C word. I'm gonna get it. Oh, balance. It's not a C word. It's balance.
Threw me all the way off, Tanny.
Right? I was just testing. See if you're paying attention. Focus and balance, right? So he was saying, when you're focused, you can't be balanced. So a lot of people try to find a balance in life when they should be focused to fix whatever. Let's say they're in a terrible situation, right? Situation like you were saying, $700, you need to find a way to make it happen. But when you finally get there, that's the time where he says you don't need to stay in that focus mode. You can be a little more balanced. Then when something's a little off, maybe my relationship's suffering, I need to focus on that. When you get that there, be balanced. When something's falling off, you focus. And when I heard it like that, I was like, it kind of makes sense. And it kind of goes to when you're in intense focus and people are telling you, you need more balance, or, you're doing that too much. You kind of just have to block the noise. And I guess in a sense, just listen to your own voice. Like I can't figure out a better way to kind of self-gauge when to go in and out of those two, mindsets.
You asked me what I think about that? So So what comes to mind when I hear that, and I have not read Myron Golden, his books, but now I have to look that up. But what comes to mind is seed time and harvest time.
100%.
And there's a time you should always be sowing seeds, whether you recognize it or not. You are, which is why how you treat people, how your energy, the energy you bring to things, you're always sowing seeds. It's not easy to manage that every day, but it is a daily thing. What am I bringing to this? What is the energy? Those are seeds. Who am I kind to? Who am I supporting? Who have I shown goodness to? All of those are seeds.
Yeah.
There's seed time and there's harvest time. And some of us are in harvest and some of us are sowing.
100%.
Right? And while you're harvesting, you're planting some new seeds. So what I love about seed time and harvest time is that it is perpetual. If you are a faith-based person, then you recognize there will always be seed time and oh, it's harvest time, which means that what you plant should yield fruit. You should harvest from what you are planting. And I'm not just talking about money. If you sow goodness, you reap bitterness. You can't sow corn and reap carrots. So you have to sow what you want. And same thing in your business, right? You're constantly sowing and you're constantly harvesting. Some harvests are small, but you have to be harvesting something, which is why it's important to celebrate the small wins. Because out of small things come great things.
Absolutely.
And you take your small wins and you plant, and other things are coming. And there are seeds you are going to sow that you will not see. People are like, oh yeah, that's what. Listen, you're benefiting from seeds sown. And you want to be intentional about the seeds you sow that you will not see. Right? That's legacy. So seed time and harvest time is what I gather from that. That is what I think about more often now. And what entrepreneurship has done for me has forced me to activate my faith. I don't know where you or anyone else is in their faith walk, but this is hard to do when you don't have some point of reference, when you are going to doubt yourself. You are going to be concerned when you have. I took a lot of blows for some years. It was like a 3-year period, and I was just like, wow, maybe I'm not good at this. And then the narrative was really not positive, because when things go on for a long time or long enough. Not even a long time, for long enough, you start to question it.
Right.
You're just stuck.
And you have to go back to something. And I had to go into prayer. And I had friends that were like, you are not your business. You are not the sum of, right? The sum of your failures and your successes. You are you, and you are not any less gifted because this didn't work. You are not any less talented because this doesn't work. And this culture we have now of failure being redirection is the best thing. When I heard it, when it was introduced, I think the first time I heard it was Oprah. Oprah said failure is redirection.
Interesting.
And I was like, where was that?
Time.
That whole time I was like, this whole time I was beating myself up about this failing and this, that, and the other. And I was like, what?
Oh, man.
Yeah,
that's funny.
But you need to hear that, because it doesn't mean you're any less. It just means that might not be it, and maybe this isn't the door. But you sowed some seeds in that failure, and you sowed some seeds in that success. And you'd be surprised at what will come to fruition at different times.
I actually think that makes you a lot tougher than someone that didn't go through that, like you were saying. Like nothing's either good or bad. It's just thinking that makes it so. So even though you had those tough situations happen to you, now you definitely do have something to draw from. And I say that because I want to get your thoughts on this, I guess, recession that we're going through right now.
Mm-hmm.
How do you compare it to what happened to you in 2009?
No, see, like 2008, 9 and going into 2010 was completely, it was a once in a lifetime experience. And I mean, I will tell you, I sense that when I was talking to my real estate group about this very thing about a month ago, where they said, remember when we had like 52 deals on the board and then in like 2 weeks, all of them started to cancel? That's wild. Yeah, Telecom said we have 52 closings on the board. And I said, I remember, and I said I had 3 deals that were supposed to close in that 2-week period.
Just to see 52
and then
drop off.
And then the banks were like, we're pulling all our approvals. Right? And you're like,
that's wild.
What is this? And it was just, I said, well, maybe it will rebound in a few months. I had a little money saved, and it didn't. So as a millennial, as one of the older millennials, what's this, our 3rd recession?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
I had to think about it.
Yeah, it's like our 3rd recession.
Yeah,
I got you.
So what's good is that we have learned to live in instability. Right? We had to find a way to make it work, whether it's up or down. I had to find stability and instability. But overall, you know, the Great Recession of 2008 and 9 wiped out portfolios for people.
100%.
Right? And we are seeing now, and I said this before, I said we are going to see the result of policy decisions and this event, because when you plan for retirement, your home is a large part of that, right? It's 25 a third of your retirement. When you talk about people who lost their home, okay, so you lost your home, that potential for your retirement is gone.
Yeah.
When you lose your home in foreclosure or a short sale, you're credit impaired. You're locked out of the credit market for at least 3 years. If you foreclose, maybe 5. If you file bankruptcy, 7.
Oh.
So if you foreclosed in 2009, it was 2016. If you filed bankruptcy in 2009, 2016 is when you could rebound. So all the deals in 2009, 10, 11, the pricing, the 70, 80,000, you could buy those unless you're buying cash. So here you are, credit impaired, coming out in a higher market, higher financing than what you probably had then. Or even if financing was favorable, you've lost 7 years, right? So now you have you have all of these people who are underfunded for retirement because some of them couldn't get back into market. Why? Because of supply.
That's wild.
Right? So now you see the conversation, well, nobody's prepared for retirement. Duh.
Right.
Millennials like, I can't afford to do things. Well, so what's going to happen to all the people who lost assets, are rebuilding, right? 7 years locked out. Now we're in a higher interest rate environment. We're not building more homes for purchase. In this area, we're building more homes for rent.
Exactly.
So exactly where are we going to build the retirement portfolio? What's going to anchor it? So, so now you have the generation of Bitcoin and investment. Well, you got to, for your generation, you have to figure out what you're going to invest into so you're not destitute in your old age. But that's what the recession did. And I knew it because I was affected too. I was in real estate. Heavily invested in real estate. So now you look at all of that wealth that was wiped out, all of that equity that was wiped out. Because remember, they foreclosed on mortgages that were $250,000, say mortgage was $200,000, and then turned around and sold it for $70,000.
My God.
So now you have someone, you have a swath of people that were owners that entered into the rental market and then had to re-enter into the buyer's market, credit impaired, paying more money. And, it was a disadvantage for many Americans. And I'm not just talking color, I'm just talking about Americans who were affected by it. And now we're starting to see people like, oh, I'm going to have to work longer. How am I going to do this? I'm just going to continue to rent because my portfolio can support rent, not, actually buying a house or things like that. So that's the effects of that.
That's wild. I never thought about it from that perspective.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of people
close to it. I was like, wait.
Yeah, that's why they say the millennials are the poorest generation. And it's true in a lot of instances because we just don't have the financial capacity that we should.
Yeah.
And those that had and lost are less prepared for retirement as a result. There are people I know that lost homes and still haven't purchased.
To this day.
Yeah, to this day. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because given the craziness in the market, but you just have to think about, okay, well, this is not the asset I'm going to be invested in, so they had to figure it out. But that's a significant portion of a retirement portfolio is your home.
That is wild.
As you sell and then you downsize and you put the cash into your retirement.
Yeah.
So.
Man, it was Brandon, when was it, yesterday when we saw the I guess Disney is in the process of laying over, I think, like 7,000 people.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
Starting with ESPN.
Yeah. So.
Oh, so that's what? Yeah.
Yeah, ESPN is a part of Disney, and they got rid of a bunch of their on-air talent, even more so people in the back.
I saw that.
Which was wild. So let me tell you why this one, although I wasn't as close to it, as far as the housing market, kind of scares me more. The automation of AI, and I've been studying like crazy for the past 6 months. And just the things that it can do that used to take thousands of people to do, like collaborate in a week, you could do it on your own in less than an hour.
Yeah.
So now I'm seeing the job market just dissipate. And the crazy thing is, when you see something like that, you don't believe it's going to affect like the quote unquote like art community, right?
Oh, and
the creatives. But that's the first thing that it's hitting.
Yeah.
Really?
So if it's hitting that, and it can do things that the analytical mind can do, it's getting to a point where do we end up in 5 years? Because obviously you can't control it, right? It's just going to keep developing. What do you do? What do you have people do as far as work, looking far in the future?
That's a big question. I don't have the answer to that, but I will say that what we don't understand will become a threat. And I do think that we do need to understand and learn how AI works, how it's going to be applied. I saw a caption on something that was online. I saw a caption on someone's on a YouTube about they're learning how to use AI. So they're basically becoming the translator or the liaison in their company for that. But that's awesome. But that's a thinking person.
100%.
Right? Because skilling up is a real thing. Yeah. Skilling up is a real thing.
It's like the film industry right now. They're in a strike, or they're in a writer's strike right now because they're using AI to write a lot of these films and television, which used to take 3 producers and 6 writers. They're down to 1 producer and 2 writers. You know what I mean? So what that looks like to me is like either you're gonna start, your rewrites are gonna be faster, or you're gonna be outsourced by AI. You know what I mean?
I don't think you can beat AI at that. You know what I mean? Because it just moves faster.
We'll just get ahead of it. Yeah. If I know you're gonna use AI to do a rewrite, I'm gonna just make the rewrite already. I'm gonna write 3 different versions of this story.
Gotcha.
You don't like that one? You don't like that one? I got another one for you. And just keep it coming.
Yeah.
Because that's the reality.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%. The only thing that I could think of as a solution, and this is just basically off the top of my head, is just really getting into skill stacking. Just making yourself more unique by being able to take different skill sets that used to be one person's specialty and finding a unique way to just make it your own.
Yes.
Which kind of also feeds into the personal branding, I feel, is basically mandatory now. Yeah. When you look at the landscape, I feel like if you don't have a personal brand, I mean, essentially the people I'm seeing that don't have a personal brand are really suffering right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's only going to get worse and worse. Because at the end of the day, being able to do certain skills is just getting commoditized. So I believe having a personal brand and just skill stacking and just having a unique value proposition, I feel like is the way our economy is kind of going right now.
I can agree with that. I definitely think getting ahead, learning about it, getting ahead, finding out where you fit is not just recommended, it is essential. It is in terms of personal branding and really doing that skills assessment to create your offering. I think so. Realtors are really good at niching, and that skill, that's a skill, and I'm so glad I was exposed to it in being a realtor, because that's where we're at now.
100%.
That this whole, community, and these are hard things to do, building community, maintaining your presence, but understanding that group and then getting the most out of that.
How far do you niche down as, from a realtor's perspective? Like you say niche down, like how specific are you getting?
There's some realtors that can get really granular. It's like, I sell homes with the best home offices, and they can, accommodate big dogs. I mean, it's just, it gets really granular. It used to be just, intercoastal property, and I teach the real estate course.
Yeah.
And I tell my students, I'm like, so who in here is gonna sell intercoastal property? Because I need a friend. That's an intercoastal. But
100%.
From just rooftop access, from whatever you can find that's unique, and then find a bunch of those types of properties. Realtors have been doing it a long time. We sell this community, we sell this condo, we sell this area
to this type of people, to this type of person.
Well, we sell this because to say this type of person is violation of fair housing.
Oh,
but
okay, can't say that.
But
Retract.
to say it's area farming.
Got you.
Right. So area farming is niching. We sell here. We sell this here, and we know everything about that.
Exactly.
Right. So that was a great introduction. So I think we are starting to see these microservices.
That is awesome. You got to learn that so early,
niche,
because that's
niching down.
That's the toughest thing for me so far in my journey, was niching down. And even when I'm helping other people with that, it's getting them to niche down. Because in your head, you're thinking you're leaving people out. I can also help them.
You want to help everybody, but it's not meant for everybody.
Well, and then so finding the right customer is so challenging sometimes, because you really have to understand. Let me say it this way: when you say, I want to target this customer. This is the segment I want to focus on.
Okay.
And what I have seen is we don't quantify how large that market is. Niches tend to be smaller because they're not mass market, but where we are is we find ourselves scared to say no, because you're like, well, this is a segment, and I'm saying no to business that's coming in. So there's that fear, like, well, there's something over here. So you have to suss that out right? Like, am I missing something? Because they're trapped.
Are you a busy coach, consultant, entrepreneur, ready to launch your podcast, but feeling overwhelmed by the process? I mean, from recording to editing to distribution and promotion, it can feel like a mountain to climb. But what if launching your podcast didn't have to be so difficult? I mean, what if launching your podcast could be painless? Speaking of painless, the lovely folks at Painless Podcasting are starting their new podcast launch program. They handle everything from remote recording to editing, distribution, and media management. It's just all tailored to your needs, and they make the entire process seamless. Imagine just getting up in front of your computer, talking, and the rest is handled for you. You could have your own branded podcast in 1 month or less, kind of like the one you're watching right now. And right now, they're offering 15% off when you use the promo code LAUNCH15 at checkout to receive 15% off your first month. With Painless Podcasting, you can really focus on your message while they handle the technicalities. Sign up today and make your podcast launch painless. Now let's get back to the show.
Maybe you're a niche in Fort Lauderdale. Maybe you're a niche in Valdosta. Maybe you're a niche. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, 100%.
And that's what I have learned, and what I've seen is that sometimes we get scared because it's a smaller group of people. You're not selling as much. And then there's also, it just might not be enough people to get you to where you need to get to. So you have to then identify like where they are and broaden your territory.
Have you read a book called Blue Oceans? I think it's Blue Oceans. I forget the author's name off the top of my head. But he's essentially just saying what you're saying as far as finding a market. But the main point that he had was that there's blue oceans and red oceans. And most people, or the majority of businesses out there, compete on red oceans. So everything's essentially commoditized. So you're just essentially competing on price. But when you find like a unique, I guess, sub-market and get really, really specific about it, you start to find your blue ocean. That you're actually talking to. And there's no competition there because you serve them in a particular way. But like I said before, that was the hardest thing, and probably still is in anything I'm going to do in the future. Just being able to say no to business coming in.
Especially when you're niching, it's tough because you're like, this is what we do. And what you do will attract others. But when I say no, it is, okay, how much resources are you going to put towards that segment? So you really have to find out, like, are they my customer coming from elsewhere, or is this product being used, or product or service providing value in a way I haven't seen? So you have to really investigate how your product and service are being used, why people outside of what you targeted are coming, right?
100%.
Yeah, so you're constantly
a lot of evaluation.
Constantly.
Man.
And as an entrepreneur, which is why the freelancer community and the creative community is so, to me, is so dynamic, is because you are constantly skilling up and retooling. You can't be complacent.
No chance. Yeah.
Right? Like
100%.
you have to know it. You have to be sensitive to it. They call it agile, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's great about being a small team, is the agility. We're able to do things more quickly. We're able to make pivots. We also see trends more quickly. We're like, what is this about? What is that about? Right?
Yeah.
Here's a fun fact about me, is that I got into affordable housing during the recession because it was the only thing I could sell. FHA and VA insured loans were the only game in town. Well, actually, FHA insured, VA guaranteed loans were the only things only financing you could get. And that's how I ended up surviving. And then down payment assistance was available. And I cobbled together some really great deals for home buyers during that time. And that's how I was introduced to housing programs. And I said, wow, this is something we should be doing more of. We should be investing in. And how do I work with these organizations? That's how I fell into real estate.
That is interesting.
That's really how I fell into it.
And I think you said something before. Do you think it's almost advantageous to be a small business at this point in time, as opposed to being a larger business? Because before, it almost seemed, it was the fact that larger businesses had more resources.
Yeah.
But it almost seems like now the playing field is being just completely level, just evening. It
is. I think, I don't know if it's, they have their advantages, right? I think being a small business in being agile is an advantage. I cannot discount capacity. And I had this conversation on Monday about capacity.
Okay. What was the conversation?
How hard it is to build capacity. And larger organizations, you can't sleep on resources are important. Monetary and non-monetary, human capital, financial capital, to move on things. So to be a small business and not be properly capitalized or adequately capitalized is not an advantage, right? If you are a small business that can move on opportunities because you have capacity, that's an advantage.
That is interesting. I feel like there's the way you describe it seems like there's a perfect midway point there?
Let me describe it to you this way. There are a lot of small businesses, when you hear about access to capital, financial capacity, a lot of small businesses struggled to get financing and therefore struggle to grow, because if you only have working capital enough to manage 2 contracts, then you're not going to grow as fast.
100%.
Right? Which is why payment terms were important, and we had that. You hear that all the time. I got to pay it in 30 days. I got to pay, because that's your working capital. But if you only have the resources to mobilize on 2 opportunities, you have to say no, lest you risk
100%.
right?
Yeah.
Your failure, your reputation, or find yourself in a lawsuit because you can't perform. So, but a capitalized business grows faster because if they have patient capital that's not debt, right?
Yeah.
Equity. When you hear about these companies that have, and I'm not talking about these huge tech startups. I'm talking about, you get $100,000 in equity investment, and now you can hire. Now you can do more. That's the advantage. That's financial. That's financial. The effect of financial capacity.
That kind of feels like it could go backwards a little bit, I guess, this day and age, in the fact that when you're not agile like that, right? Let's say you can fulfill and grow, but if something is happening, it takes so long for you to be able to pivot, and you have all this fulfillment that you have to take care of.
Well, so if you can't fulfill, you can't grow. That's a really, really bad place to be, because so the business that can fulfill on 2 grows at a slower pace. Doesn't mean they can't grow. They grow slower than the business that has financial capacity. Same thing with operational capacity, right? Mm-hmm. If you have money and can't hire people, or can't get machinery, you can't do what you can't get equipment. Right? You can have money if you are transporting. You lease trucks and you're transporting goods. If there's a shortage of trucks and you have capital, you lack operational capacity. Therefore, you can't fulfill.
Gotcha.
Right? Mm-hmm. So capacity, financial and operational, really are significant to growth. So if you are in a position where you can't fulfill, and therefore you should not be growing at a faster pace, right?
Gotcha. 100%.
Like if you have financial capacity for 2 contracts, you're just going to grow at 2 contracts. When these 2 are done, you're going to work on these 2, and that's what it is. Doesn't mean you stop, but if you can't do both, that is not an advantage.
That makes sense, yeah.
And identifying your operational and financial limitations so you can create capacity is hard. That was the conversation on money. And we said, you almost said operational capacity precedes marketing, because it will be a waste, right? And I said, you might be right, but operational capacity is hard to create.
Wow, that is a lot to factor in, to put together. But like you're saying, I mean, that's a daily thing to be able to. Gosh, now I'm like rethinking.
Yeah,
rethinking. Like she does have a point there, but at the same time,
and think about it now, because you have to rethink how you got to know your business, and you have to rethink how you're going to achieve this, because now it's expensive to hire people,
especially after COVID.
So you have to think about how you're going to work with them. Yeah. I like building the small teams of entrepreneurial businesses. So if we're going to build out a marketing team, let's see how this works with contractors. If we're going to build out a sales team, let's see how we can do this with contractors. Not because I don't think those are services that should be in-house. I think there's a benefit to having sales and marketing in-house.
100%.
Right? Mm-hmm. I think having some operational functions in-house. I think it's stability, quality control, all of those things, having it staffed in-house are real factors to consider. But because of where we are, this environment has changed, right? The labor environment has changed. So now you have to think about how to meet your operational capacity needs in a market that is not favorable to you. which is why I say you have to perspective and rethinking. So you're
like
constantly
testing out each side to see.
You're constantly saying, okay, well, maybe I need this marketing team, but maybe what I need is a project manager, and then I can sub out the rest. You got to know your business to know where, exactly. Because at the end of the day, you have to fulfill, and you have to grow.
Can you get a round of applause, please? Wow, that's crazy.
And it's hard, and the conversation right now is about operational capacity, and I'm like, this is so hard. I was like, Lord.
It's so interesting because it's one of those conversations that is just constantly moving from a day-to-day basis. So as the facts come in, what's the saying? The facts come in. I forgot. I'm forgetting quotes, but I'm definitely mind blown. The facts come in, something changes. Something changes as the facts come in. That's what we're going to call it. All right. So before
everything is variable. Everything is variable.
You know what?
Only constant is change.
I better hit another button. Wow. I think this might be a record for the amount of buttons that we've hit in one. So before I ask you my last question, I'm going to give Brandon an opportunity to ask you a question because he had the face like you wanted to ask something. I know the face.
No. Okay. We talked about on another podcast about reinventing yourself. You know what I mean? And that was, you opened up with that. You had to reinvent yourself. A lot of people do it because they're forced into doing it. A lot of people do it because they see that within whatever they're doing that they have to evolve, right? I guess my question for you is, how long did it take you for that change to start to happen? The recession happened where you like, yo, I need to do this tomorrow, or what did that look like for you?
So you said a couple things. I'm going to start with the last comment because I want to talk about evolution. From the recession until I won my first contract, so we're talking about 4 or 5 years, that was back against the wall. Right? That's back against the wall.
Right.
And after that, we had some challenges, which was personal challenges, which was also back against the wall. So about 7 years, some really challenging times, professionally then personally.
Yeah.
And then I moved into thriving. And I knew that I was evolving, and I didn't know how to articulate that.
Right.
I really didn't. And I've always been the realtor. I've always been the real estate broker. And I had to form myself. I keep a journal. I have a very long journal entry about what am I doing now? Does this still feel right now? And I realized in that period, and this was months of introspection and prayer and tears, because the fear is always that you wasted your time.
Yeah. And you don't want to feel like that.
Don't even want to contemplate it because of what you sacrificed.
Yeah, I gave up everything to...
You don't even want to open your mouth and whisper that you may have wasted your time. And I did not spend too much time on some things and with some people, but I did not waste my time. And where I landed with that is that I am an entrepreneur. And my job, my career is to monetize solutions. That is what I am supposed to do, is what I believe I'm here to do. And it still sounds and feels right today for me. Now, what that looks like in personal branding and marketing, I still really don't know. But to your point on evolution, which is why I started there and went to evolution, I am in the midst of an evolution now. And that's why I want to change the way I introduce myself, because I am more than a broker. I'm more than a consultant. I plan to have a lot of commas.
Yeah.
And for a long time, we've always been told being a jack of all trades, and that's true. You want to master what you're doing. But if you're fortunate enough to be blessed with more than one talent, add the comma. Just be good at it.
That's good.
Yeah.
Punctuate properly. Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm figuring that out, what that introduction will be. But I'm an entrepreneur, but I am more than an entrepreneur, more than a realtor. I'm a lot of things, and what that looks like, what that looks like in writing, I'm not sure yet. I'm really not. And I'm glad that I'm at a point where I'm okay with, I've let go of the jack of all trades. It's limiting.
Yeah.
You know, I picked up a skill during the pandemic. I have real estate development ambitions, and I was like, no, I can do this. So now I'm a developer, but I like tech, and I'm learning a software language.
Right.
So am I a tech? Am I a woman in tech? Maybe.
Yeah.
But I believe I'm blessed and highly favored to have more talents, and I'm putting some commas.
I like it.
I
I have another question.
I'm sure you do. Go for it.
This is
all right,
so
go for it.
I also heard you mention, you know, you're very faithful. And when it comes to prayer, how specific do you have to get when you're in your prayer? How specific did you get when asking for these things?
Real specific.
Like how specific? Like give me an example.
So
I'm sorry.
It's like how specific.
So,
like you say 1050 like right now, or like
so my journal is a form of prayer. And as I sit here right now, I'm like, I don't pray enough because I'm constantly talking to God. People are like, oh, you're just talking a lot. No, I'm having a conversation.
how do you define prayer? Out of curiosity.
So there's prayer where you are just on bended knee and you pray. There's that. I do that. I am in constant communication. I'm constantly, you know, Lord, is this what it is? Or, you know, you just stop and you just have that moment. And I count that as prayer, and I count my journal as prayer because I get very honest in my journal, and it gets granular. It gets granular to the fear that, did I waste my time? I'll share this statement with you from my journal from that very, back in 2018, where I said, am I still in this business? Because if I were to let it go, then I would have admitted that I failed at it. There were some things going on at that time. And I said, if I stop doing this, then it wasn't worth it. So do you keep doing what you've been doing because you're scared that then that means you didn't do any, you know, it didn't work? And that was just not, that was the wrong perspective. Right. And I had to I was in deep prayer with that. And, you know, how we talk to ourselves and how we perceive things that didn't work out, we don't see that there's opportunities that have come. And when you've been in the ring a long time, you get disoriented. You do. When you've been punched punched a couple times, you're disoriented. And you forget who you are. You forget what has happened in your life. Right? Like, wherever you are in your faith, I'm here because God said so.
There you go.
A lot of people didn't get the PPP loan. Businesses that made more money than me, that have been more established, people that I had a relationship, didn't get it, went out of business. I got it. Twice. I'm here for a reason.
There you go.
And that, I have to remind myself of those things. also the people you have to talk to you like that. You need people who are for you, whether it fails, whether it succeeds, people that are like, no, you are this. And when you start talking like that, I'm going to remind you. And you don't need a lot of them. I have 3.
I have Tanny. Tanny.
And that's all you need.
No, Tanny. Like we're like circa a year ago, right?
Yeah.
And Tanny's like, dude, I'm gonna be at your book signing, and just shout me out. Just make sure that you shout me out wherever you get to where you're going. And I used to think about like, Tanny, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Coming full circle, a lot of things that we talked about are starting to come into fruition, and we're starting to implement plans to make these things come true.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It took a lot of prayer, it took a lot of refocus.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I asked you, how specific did you get? I used to
very specific.
And I used to be the type of person like, God, just help me get through the day. And I'm just like, that's good. And I felt like that's a start by opening a conversation with, your higher power. But, in more recent times, I've gotten a lot more specific in what I want, what I need, what I want to happen for other people, for the people around me, for my family, my friends. So, what you're saying right now makes 100% sense. And I'm glad that you shared that with me.
And I will also share that when you open the conversation, Lord, get me through this day. That's enough. That's more than enough, because there have been some days where you're like, today I'm going to quit. For a while, I was like, I quit every day, but I get up and I do it again the next day.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because it was hard.
I get that. Every day I make the decision to keep going.
And that's what it is.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And, I always recommend the journal, because I have gone back and read some of those things, and I'm like, no, yes, I remember that. It speaks to you.
Yeah.
And when you open up the conversation and you are honest, not with your friends, I'm talking about when you are honest with yourself and you can share that, whether in writing, verbally, or however you do it, then you have to listen for the response.
Gotcha.
That was the thing, because there's some days, like between 10 and noon is a time that I have calls and, do business development and all of that. And there's some days when I'm just like, I spend an hour just rereading my journal. My spirit just leads me there. And the distress, but then the hope, and then when it was like the gratitude for things that happened. And then what I have in some of the entries, I didn't even state what happened. I was just happy.
Right.
I was like, Lord, thank you for doing that thing. And I was like, what was that thing? What was that thing?
Right. You just went in there and wrote it. Thank you.
Yes, right. And it helped me, and it still helps me. And it definitely, I couldn't do this. I've grown the most spiritually. And maybe big things take time, and because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't.
Right.
And I'm learning that maybe it hasn't happened yet because the Spirit is working some things out in you.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And that could be understanding what you're going to do with the money. I recently learned some things about legal structures and investment that I'm like, man, I'm glad I knew that now. Right.
So when you
and maybe if I had it, so maybe it's working you out too. Not everything is about the dollar. That was another lesson too.
Right.
Maybe some things are just being worked out, and I definitely don't think I could have done it without the prayer. I had some incredible people. I have some really good friends. I don't have a lot of people that that are like in my inner circle.
Right.
But if you have one, you're all right. I have about 5.
Yeah. I got 4, but 10.
And that's a blessing. People that are like, no, you're gonna get there.
Yeah.
That they believe in you more than you believe in yourself sometimes.
Mhm.
They're like, I had no doubt. I had one friend, I was like, I have no doubt in you that you're going to do this. And she said that years ago. And she's like, and I told you you're going to do it. And just like how you can have faith in people and that's you passing that along. Like you can see, I'm like, I know you're going to do it, but because they're in that and they're consumed by the prospect of what if it doesn't work? What if I made that mistake? And you bear that on your own because you know what's going on and you are you can't share that with everybody. And it becomes a lot. Yeah. It becomes a lot. And I just don't think I could have done it without the absolute recognition that the Spirit has sustained me. I don't think so.
Wow, that's deep. It's funny because the last question I was going to ask you was a word of wisdom for people, but I feel like you just dropped a couple words of wisdom. Yeah. I'm still going to ask it anyway. But before that, I want to ask one more question before. So I guess this would be the second to last. When does the book come out?
I don't know.
So I feel like every time I see you, I'm going to keep asking you that question.
You should. I maybe there's something in the journal. There's something in the journal that I should be writing about. That's a good question.
Okay. That's all right.
Maybe a speaking tour. Maybe a speaking tour. I don't know.
Okay, we'll see. I was waiting for it. I was like, okay, we'll see. Give us an excuse to bring her back and ask her the same question again. On behalf of all of us here and everyone listening, we just want to thank you for coming out. I mean, you dropped so many gems, and absolutely, I know for a fact, and I'm sure Brandon does, this conversation is going to impact a lot of people.
100%. I hope so. This has been great. Again, I'm so proud of you guys, and I do not want to be stingy with the information.
Round of applause, please. Yep. Hit a couple buttons.
Whatever it is, I am here to pay it forward and help people who just need it. It's so funny that how one small thing can just change. You're like, oh, was it a comment? Like if you ever in Excel, you're like, why is it not calculating?
Right.
And then you're like,
because you missed the
parentheses. You're like, what? It was a parentheses?
I can't stand Excel.
I hope.
I hate Excel.
I hope it's that one thing. So I was like, was that? Thank you, Tanisha.
That is so true. Oh, those can be frustrating. With that, Tanisha, take us out with a word of wisdom. What do you want to tell someone listening out there? Just some word of encouragement or wisdom that they can take with them for the rest of their day.
It's always seed time and harvest time.
Can't leave it any better than that. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Flipping Tables Podcast.